I've been watching Attack on Titan for the first time ever, and I just finished season 4, part 1, so let's talk about it. And if you haven't been keeping up with my journey through AOT, I should have a playlist down here that starts from the very beginning of season 1 up until this point. And these videos are basically just serving as a way for me to check in after each arc to share my thoughts with you guys. And something that has become just a meme now is at the start of these videos, I don't think that they're going to be that long, but they've been like 30 and 40, I think maybe even 50 minutes sometimes. But earnestly this time, this one's going to be really short for two reasons. The first is that I don't feel like there's too much to sink my teeth into, and that's not to say that there wasn't insane and incredible moments and an incredible depth in this arc, but just in terms of like massive reveals or things to like really speculate that shifted my theories, I don't think there was too much. This was instead just a really beautiful exploration and recontextualization of the events preceding Eren attacking Marley, which I've been wondering like how that all came together. But honestly, more importantly, the reason this one won't be as long is because as an idiot, I've waited too long to make this video because we actually watched these episodes like 3 weeks ago, and unintentionally, I have just had like crazy busy weekends, and I have not had time to like sit down and actually share my thoughts. And so it's been so long now that I think I've probably like forgotten most of like the really interesting things I wanted to say. So I apologize for that. I'm doing a disservice not only to myself but to you guys. But you know, maybe it's cope. I really don't think there was, again, too many like crazy shifting of the theories for me to really yap about anyway. So what I'm going to do for this video is instead try to kind of walk myself through what happened to serve as a refresher to me, but also just to make sure that I'm tracking on all of the things that happened. And then there's a few things in particular I do want to take a little bit more time on. So first and foremost, let's talk about the general strokes of this, and you guys can let me know if I got it right or wrong. Well, actually, you won't be able to. Maybe some of the trusted people out there could let me know, but I won't be reading comments on this video, just like I haven't been reading comments on the past videos because people have been trying to spoil me. But in any case, let's get into it. Okay, as I'm sitting here trying to decide where to start, I'm realizing there actually was a lot, but I'm not going in chronological order. Probably, I'm just going to try to spill out everything that I understand about this arc. So, to put it very simply, there are two factions now within Paradis, within the Eldians. Basically, the old way and this new wave of Jaegerists that basically want Eren to be in charge and believe in his mission. Because as it stands currently, they have locked Eren up because he went rogue for that Marley mission. And he's willingly being imprisoned for now, even though he could break out, thanks to him, absorbing the Warhammer Titan. But Eren is kind of wanting to know, like, I'm sitting in this prison right now because I would love to hear what solution you guys have. But meanwhile, his solution is using the rumbling, at least as a threat, which seems to be the general like idea. The rumbling being activating all of these titans with the coordinate, which they can do if there is a pairing of a royal and a non-royal, right? Because Eren, I guess not being royal, can fully use the coordinate, whereas descendants of the Reese family cannot because of the ancient vow of the original king or whatever, right? So by, Zeke and Eren combining, they could actually do this, which is on the surface the plan. We'll get into that though. But so the powers that be in Eldia, in Paradis, I never know which one it is. They want to use the rumbling for their own uses, right? Like they want to use it as a threat to prevent other nations from coming to attack them, being like, hey, we'll do this, mutually assured destruction, do not come at us. So their plan to do that, because they don't trust Zeke, even though Zeke has seemingly, extended the olive branch, they're like, no. We're going to have Historia inherit the Beast Titan because we can manipulate her, or she's at least on our side, whatever the case, right? And she will just pump out babies so that we can continuously have future royals to let inherit the Beast Titan for as long as possible so that we can always control the rumbling. And, presumably they would have whoever inherit Eren's Titan, so that the pairing again of the Beast Titan and the Founding Titan could always enact the rumbling should they so choose. So like that's their plan. Eren's not about that. He doesn't like the idea of Historia becoming just like a breeding human, just serving that purpose. Like that's not something he wants. So that's why the powers that be want to deal away with Eren and they want somebody else to inherit his Titan. But meanwhile, the Jaegerists, they just want Eren in charge, right? And so again, something I think I talked about in the previous video is like how did Zeke and Eren come together? So long story here, but we basically get these flashbacks about Eren, grabbing one of the Marley ships, and on those ships were like a secret subset of Marleyans that actually worked for Zeke, and they reveal this plan that Zeke's actually on the Eldian side. He wants to enact the rumbling. Let's get Zeke and Eren together, right? But again, the powers that be are like, we don't trust that. Let's keep them apart, right? So the Jaegerists want to connect Eren and Zeke, but for the vast majority of this, they're intentionally keeping them apart, right? Okay, so that's what's going on with the main factions there. But the Jaegerists do. I can't remember if I've even said this already. I'm already getting lost. The Jaegerists do have a coup where they like essentially take over the government and they want to put Eren in charge. And meanwhile, Eren, even amongst his closest friends, this scout corps, Armin, Mikasa, like they're starting to doubt him. They think he's kind of gone too far off the deep end. And one of the most like painful moments is when like Eren confronts Mikasa and is being like, you're only like you don't even I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but her Ackerman blood is like compelling her to act in the way she does, or something along those lines. Basically, like very, very cruel what he says to her, basically saying that he never cared for her. So yeah, big old rift between Eren and basically everyone he's ever cared about up until this point, right? But he is determined to basically meet up with Zeke, and I guess, again, either enact the rumbling or at least have the potential to do it as a threat. Okay, so boom, right? But then what we find out is that Zeke really has a whole other plan. And that's probably one of my favorite parts of the entire arc was the exploration of Zeke and finding out more about him. And that, what I had thought about him just being a scared kid that was, attempting to being brainwashed by Grisha Yeager, he actually, Zeke as a kid knew far more than I gave him credit for, and actually was put between a rock and a hard place. And because of the previous Beast Titan, decided that his only out was to give up his parents. Like that was the only way that he could continue his actual mission, which, as we come to find out, is he wants to basically sterilize all Eldians so that they cease to exist. Like in his mind, that's the only way to end this bloodshed, to end this suffering. Like it would be better to not exist at all than to have to go through the suffering that the Eldians are going through. So he wants to use the Founding Titan's power to like shift the physiology of Eldians to just make it so that they're sterile, so that basically this bloodshed will end in one single generation after he does that. So that's like secretly his plan, but the on the surface plan to work with the Eldians is, yeah, like we'll threaten the rumbling and that'll be a way for us to regain power. So it's interesting to think that like, what does Eren know and what does he really want? You know what I mean? Because since that's only kind of the fake plan with Zeke, I'm imagining it's kind of not really the real plan with Eren either. Meaning, I don't think Eren wants to use the rumbling as a threat. Like, I think his lust for vengeance is that deep that he actually wants to do it. And so that's kind of where we're at with all of that, I think. Then on the Marleyan side of things, we see that they realize that Zeke has betrayed them and they basically need to launch an immediate counterattack. At least that's Reiner's suggestion, like saying, hey, we can't afford to wait, like we have to go do something right now. So we know that they have actually infiltrated Paradis. I don't know if they have a name, the honorary Marleyan soldiers, the ones that are the Titans, right? So Peak in particular, we have this arc where she confronts Eren and Gabby is there, and it's a very layered scene where she pretends like she hates Marley, sorry, I'm just trying to keep all these things in track in my mind. Been that scene in particular, I do want to pause and talk about it because part of me wondered like how much was what she was saying actually true, but she just also has grown up indoctrinated, radicalized. Like she everything she said to Eren to basically make him think she was on his side was her playing him, but like I feel like there was some truth to it. But maybe not. Maybe she just is, cold hard, too far gone, and didn't believe anything she was saying. But anyway, they managed to infiltrate. She poses it as if she is going to betray Marley and deal with Eren, but in reality, it's all a setup with the Jaw Titan is there as well. And they try to sneak attack Eren. That doesn't work on its surface, but then we see Reiner and a bunch of the Marleyan forces like coming in, and there's about to be a big battle. And that is actually where season 4, part 1 ends. And I'm not done with this recap yet, but now we're caught up on what their side of things were doing. But the main thing I want to talk about from this second part is this episode and this scene in particular. It's just such a great encapsulation of everything that Attack on Titan is speaking on. I loved this episode so much, and I actually loved the little arc with Gabby and Falco. You guys know Falco is my goat, and he continues to be. I was terrified when he got hit over the head with this wine bottle. I was like, do not take out my guy this way. And it seems like he's okay, but also I have high fears for Falco because, again, so many different story threads coming through right now. But one thing we did learn is how they transformed that entire village into Titans in whatever season that was, season 2. Connie's village, right? It's because Zeke's spinal fluid can basically make Eldians Titans, that they can be turned at any moment if they consume or are exposed to his spinal fluid. So they released like a nerve gas in that village, and that's how they turned Connie's village. But what we found out is that part of Zeke's plan was that a bunch of this wine that they brought in as gifts for the Eldian higher up military officials was infused with Zeke's spinal fluid. So basically, like all of the important people in the military, and who knows, however else many people are infected with Zeke's spinal fluid and could be turned into Titans at any moment, right? And that was obviously a crazy moment with Zeke and Levi, where they were keeping Zeke. He turned all of them into Titans except Levi, who, thank God, our goat doesn't drink, I guess. But so anyway, where was I even going with this? Oh yeah, Falco got hit with this wine bottle during this chaos. The wine that has the spinal fluid in it. So now he is infected with the Titan juice. So that's a Chekhov's gun that I'm not looking forward to. But what I am hoping is that maybe paves the way for him to inherit Reiner's Titan after all. A lot of things would kind of have to take place for that to happen, but that's what I'm hoping, instead of him just being doomed to become a mindless Titan and die. But anyway, this scene was so incredible. The way all of these different story threads came together in this singular scene, again, talking about like the most important things in Attack on Titan, was just so masterfully crafted. Okay, Gabby following in the footsteps of all of the main characters in this series, something I've yapped about plenty in previous videos, just how we see Grisha Yeager, Reiner, Zeke to some extent, but Eren, obviously, have all of these ideals and their ideologies, but then they are implanted into enemy territory. They see how the other side lives, and how they react to that is so interesting, right? Well, we're now seeing that same cycle with Gabby. Like, perhaps the most radical of any of the people I mentioned, now being thrust into Eldian society and seeing that they're not devils, seeing that they're actually like good people, you know what I mean? And how she wrestles with that. And she has not been able to cope with that at all, even with, I can't remember her name, but this young girl that Sasha saved. I loved the scene where they're worried that she is going to find out that they're actually Marleyans. And she's like, oh no, I know you're Marleyans. Like, I've known the whole time. And yet she still treated them with such kindness and care and empathy because of what Sasha had done for her, you know what I mean? Not even knowing that this is the kid that's responsible for taking Sasha's life. And all of that coming to a head here, again, so masterfully done, because we saw that, like, what it would take to end this generational cycle of trauma and bloodshed and warfare are people who can look beyond the micro, like look at the bigger picture and be like, you know what? We are all products of our circumstances. Yes, you might be from Marley, these people that have subjugated and been at war with us for forever, but you are just a kid. Like, you had nothing to do with that. We can look beyond this, like we can move forward. But then when the tragic realization that there actually is a personal connection here, like she is tied to your specific trauma, and then she could no longer look past it. Like the girl who was like representing that change that the world needs still succumbed to the hatred, succumbed to like the own personal hurt that she had experienced, and it was too much. She went for violence at that point. And just the layers of that. We also got that exact same thing with Nicolo and Falco, right? And it's just so good. Like, I don't want to repeat everything I just said, but it's pretty much everything I just said encapsulated in a completely different character arc, right? Because Nicolo, the original Marleyan who came over, was captured, but then experienced the other side of things and actually fell in love with Sasha and was willing to kind of bridge the gap between these two societies, right? Like, he was a perfect example of it. He and Sasha were literally emerging of the Eldians and Marleyans, like two people who at least on some level, we're able to look beyond the past, you know? And then, you know, he's reverted right back to his violent ways, but from the other side. I shouldn't say right back to his violent ways. I don't know if he's a violent guy, but you get the point, right? Even he, when faced with the personal connection to the trauma, could not rise above it and wanted to kill this little girl, right? And the only person that actually like was able to stand in the way of this violence, to actually end the cycle even when it had a personal connection to him, and the most personal connection to him, was Sasha's father. Is this him? I think it's him. I don't remember his name, but he, like the most righteous of anyone to want to take her life, you know, or not, maybe not the most righteous, the most you could understand the most. Let's put it that way, right? And he's the one that steps in and says no. And I love this because I even remember when we were first introduced to him, back when we saw Sasha save this girl the first time. The reason Sasha did that was because of how he raised her, talking about like, and again, I'm butchering it because I don't remember, but it's like he talked about how there's all these different people from different ways of life, but like when we come together, we have to change. Like, you can't take the lessons from the forest into the new society, or whatever the case may be. I'm butchering it, right? But like, it's so clear. Like, obviously he's such a good guy, and he would be the one to be strong enough to have that strength of character to step in and be like, no, like, this doesn't solve anything. Like, we need to keep the children out of this. I think we need to keep the children out of the forest, or something like that. It was poetic, it was beautiful, and he's right. Like, that is the only way to stop this cycle. You know what I mean? Because we will always have a reason on both sides. They're always going to have a reason to perpetuate the violence. But if we can't keep the children out of it, like, we're never going to get anywhere. And so he has, again, that just conviction to step in and be like, this is not how we can get better. And again, my freaking butchering of this is not doing it good service, but this was just so beautiful on so many levels. And again, just the mastery of pulling all of these different plot threads into this extremely satisfying climax was just so well done. I'm very interested to see where Gabby goes from here. Like, is this the thing that finally breaks through to her? Like, kind of gets past that wall of radicalization and indoctrination that she's had up? Because so far she's reacted perhaps the strongest out of all of the examples we talked about earlier in terms of Eren, Grisha, and Reiner, right? Like, she tried to kill the girl Sasha saved with a pitchfork as soon as she realized that she knew they were Marleyans. So maybe this is the thing that finally kind of gets through to her a little bit. And if so, what does that even mean, right? Like, does she have a chance to talk with Reiner or something, and, you know, maybe they can connect on this? I don't know. Again, I'm still holding out hope for Falco. He was my beacon of light in these previous seasons, talking about, you know, a change for the future. But if Gabby can be changed, if her heart can be moved, that might even be more powerful than Falco, right? Like, somebody who was so entrenched in it might be able to, you know, help speak to the next generations if they do make it out of this. Again, I don't have high hopes for a hopeful ending with Attack on Titan, but we'll see. And then I'm just trying to think of any final thoughts here, but just Zeke's story is so tragic, man. Just again, his unique circumstances and his experiences leading him to the solution of sterilization is just so sad. I mean, you can see you can see where he came up with it though. Like it makes sense, right? Like it is a way to end something that seems unendable. Like yes, it's through a genocide of his own people, but in his mind, via his lived experience, it would be better to not exist than have to endure the suffering that his people constantly endure. So, it's just tragic. It's just tragic, especially, having to turn in his parents, like just being a kid forced in that situation. That's AOT, right? Like these poor kids. It's funny, of course, here we are. I thought this video would be 5 to 10 minutes long, and we're past the 20-minute mark now. But I think that pretty much does it. I'm sure there's a lot of like interesting small scenes and nuance that I would have loved to have talked about if I had made this video 3 weeks ago. But I think we hit the large strokes, and now thankfully we can start the next episodes, which we will do this weekend. So come join us for that watch party. And then as far as like my crazier theories and stuff, again, I just don't think there was really too much to move the needle in that regard. I still have all of the crazy like Eren thoughts and theories about the potential like time travel stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but if you watch the previous videos, you'll know what I'm referencing. I'm still kind of torn on the Eren Royal thing too. Like this arc did seem to beat us over the head that he's not a royal, because all of this stuff hinges on a pairing of Eren with a royal in order to control the coordinate. But I just, for whatever reason, still can't fully accept that, because I don't think it makes sense for why Grisha like did what he did with Eren. Like I feel like there must be something else with Eren, but we'll see. Anyways, if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Still, please comment, because I will check the comments once I'm done with AOT completely, which we're getting pretty close to that. So I'm actually looking forward to going back to the season 1 videos and just seeing what everybody said and revisiting my probably really dumb theories at the time. But yeah, we will be watching the next episodes. I don't know how many yet, but that will be this Saturday, more than likely. So if you'd like to watch the beginning of part 2 of season 4 with me, be sure to join the Discord. And as always, y'all, thanks for watching.